It is 10 days until opening day. Apparently, across Major League Baseball, we need a minute-to-minute update on the health of every single starting pitcher. We're going to talk about another injured reliever for the Guardians, the opening day starter, potentially emerging relief option, and prospects. Who would want to get excited about that?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. No, it's not. It's brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. They're in a line. The other one was first in line.
You scared me.
The other one was first in line. I know it was the wrong day. I've had a sick kid all weekend. Ear infections and 2-year-olds are not fun. My brain is not in full functioning mode. I got a week till spring break. So there's that to look forward to for me. I will say quick heads up. There will be a pair of solo shows this week. So have those to look forward to. I will be doing a solo recording tomorrow. And then Justin is covering for me when my wife goes out of town. Because otherwise you just have a screaming 2-year-old probably hanging out here on mic with me. And no one would want that on Thursday night. So yeah. Kids love change, right? That's what I hear. I'm sure it'll be fine. Speaking of loving change, this bullpen, a lot of change going to be going on. Oh boy. In my opinion, the second most important arm in this bullpen who started last year hurt. This is becoming a theme for a guy who got hurt a lot in the minors as well. Let's be honest. There is a concern with availability when it comes to the Hentges.
I love a good theme. This is not one of the themes. First of all, thank you for making our show the first show you listen to every day, wherever you get your podcasts. We are free. I'm Justin. That's Jeff. We've both written.
Who are you calling Jeff? Oh, I'm sorry. That is me.
That is you. You are in fact Jeff. I believe
I thought my name was Hate because all I get told is I hate all the time.
We're just gonna get you a T-shirt that says "Hater" on the front so you to wear on the show.
I'm just gonna put a piece of tape over here and write "Hate" on it.
Yeah. We do a little intro at the beginning of the show just because we always don't know who's listening and we don't know if we have a first-time listener. And you want to know why on earth are these two guys just ranting about Guardians baseball and other pieces of baseball that come to mind. So I've written about the Indians since 2007, covering the minor league system. I've written for the News Herald and the Morning Journal up here in Cleveland. I write for Prospects Live. I was the managing editor for Guardians/Indians Baseball Insider for a couple of years. I have my own newsletter now. I still freelance for the Morning Journal and the News Herald, and I'm here with you, Jeff, for the last, I don't know, we're going on, this is year 3 almost for me.
According to our listeners, I know nothing about baseball, so I don't need to talk about the. I'm kidding. Listen, I spent a lot of time as a national. I was a national guy for Scout in 24/7 about draft and prospects. Got my start on Indians Prospect Insider. Appeared on every blog sphere that existed for a time, thanks to my talk of draft and prospects. And then I started this podcast. I was one of the very first people to join Locked On when we switched to baseball. And I've done about 1,200 of these, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm thankful that Justin joined me, so it is more fun. But that being said, what is not fun is
the bullpen.
Yeah.
So nothing definitive yet on Sam Hentges, thankfully. I guess that's the good news. Last week we were saying I think we're just going to.
Is it the good or the bad?
It's good. I mean, in general, I think no news is good news, but at some point there's going to be news. So right now it's just hiatus of news. I don't really know how to put that in the right category there. But like we said last week with all the Tommy Johns and the shoulder surgeries and the Gavin Williams thing, I was like, I'm just going to assume the best because I don't know if we can handle any more bad information or bad news. So right now, Hentges is still there. He's going to be shut down for a couple of days because Cleveland's still trying to get some more information on the swelling in his left middle finger. He hasn't pitched until March 8th. And right now, the status is he is going to not throw for a couple of days, and he's going to return to some team activities and he saw a specialist, and then they're hoping he can return to a throwing program. But the question that was asked Stephen Vogt during the week when this came out was, we're 10 days away. It was more than 10 days, and they asked him, and he still hasn't pitched. And again, we're going on 10 days since Sam Hentges is able to throw in a game. Is his opening day status going to be in doubt? And Vogt didn't have a real clear answer on it because they just don't know. Like, we are getting to the point in camp again. It's 10 days away, and guys got to get their work in. For relievers, it's not as concerning because it's easier to build up, and sometimes you want to save some of their bullets, right? But you got to be able to work up to pitching on back-to-back days. You've got to get your body ready for that. You've got to see how you're recovering from that and see if there's any issues with recovery. There are a lot of nuances in terms of being ready for the regular season, no matter what position you're playing. And there's a series of checklists you have to go through every spring to make sure your body is ready to handle that. That's so underrated. People talk about, who cares? These guys can do it. Blah, blah, blah. Back in my day, this happened.
20 years ago, 30 years ago, that was it. Spring training was you'd show up and get off the beer gut. There was definitely
30 years ago, guys were smoking cigarettes in the dugout still, or 40 years ago, I should say.
Yeah,
things have changed, and there's still a list of things you have to go through checklist wise to make sure your body is ready for the grind of 162 games. I think it's still 180 days, but there's a lot. So I don't know. Hentges may not be ready for opening day. I will have to see if he's.
I have a hard time believing he will be. Yeah, if I'm being honest, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get ready and to get into the throw of it, especially at the beginning of the year. And I think, guys, it's harder to come back. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it is harder to come back at the very start, that you just don't have those reps, where once you have the reps, it's easier to bounce back. And yes, maybe in the 90s, you still had guys who guys working out all year now. It's harder than ever to be an athlete. You have to be on your game at all times. You all know why guys burn out quick or burn out fast. It's because you're not you used to be able to not treat it like a job, right? Like, you were good at it. You had a natural inclination. You showed up. You did what you needed to. A few guys were jacked and working all year round. And okay, I'm in my 40s. That was essentially the story of Nolan Ryan. Like, when no one else took it seriously, that dude worked out all off season to stay in peak shape. And that's why he pitched into his 40s, because it was an era where people didn't do that. I think it stinks because, again, I think Hentges is their number 2 reliever. I've said that all along, and you've said that all along, and we're in like most things, we are in agreement. So this is scary. This is the guy who I thought Barlow was probably always going to be the 8th inning guy. That's why they traded for him. But this was maybe their number 2 reliever.
Yeah, especially given being left-handed and being able to handle lefties and righties and the strikeout ability. I do think he is their most indispensable reliever. We even talked about Cleveland needing to extend Sam Hentges. My biggest issue is this. Like, last year, obviously the injury he had was a little more severe than this. Hopefully this is just something minor. But he really wasn't himself again. 2022, he was just unbelievable. He was so good, especially in the second half. I think his ERA was like 0.45 in the second half of 2022. He was good in the second half of last year, especially later in the season. But it took him a while to get there. And my concern with guys in spring training is always that they rush. I feel like they rush through, and guys feel like they're always behind. They're always catching up, because spring training, you have this set workout, and you're building to this, you're building towards this, and you've got to go, like I just said, you're going through checklists of things you got to do. And I feel like when you start the year on the injured list and you come back, you've got to work through that over again. And I feel like guys are always trying to make up for lost time as quickly as possible, especially a young guy. Like, Hentges has been around 2 years now, or 3 years, I guess, if you go back to his starting days, but he's not a veteran by any means. So you always worry about, I always feel like Jason Kipnis had this issue too when he would be injured in spring training, is you're always trying to make up for lost time, and you can never quite catch up when you get into the season. I think when you get injured during the season, it's a little easier because you've already had your build to that point. But when you get injured in spring training, I always worry about guys trying to make up, all these at-bats or all these innings pitched. You can only do what you can do. So, I just hope that they give him the time to get right if there is something going on here with the finger, No,
agreed. And listen, I go back to Friday's show and listen. Always good to go back. But fingers have scared me since the Adam Miller days. That's when the beginning of my finger concerns began. They terrify me a little bit. not as much as an elbow. That's the scariest thing to see in a horror movie. It's just a giant walking. I'm gonna make a baseball horror movie that's just an elbow that kills people's careers, not people, just their
I
careers.
will not go to see that. I will not see that movie. I like you, Jeff, but I'm not going to see that.
It's going to be called bursitis. And it's going to
bursitis. Elbow soreness. Elbow discomfort, everyone's favorite term. All right. There is a positive mindset to some of this we are going to take. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about who's going to be the open day starter, a reliever who could be emerging. That's also positive news as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about, some minor league stuff that happened over the weekend that nobody saw. And then some college baseball that you maybe did or didn't see, all coming up. Well, I did some betting over the weekend on FanDuel. I took Akron plus 4, or giving 4.5 to Kent State, and I got the over/under right 100% on that. Akron did not beat Kent State by 5 points, so I lost there. The good news is the tournament's here, so say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you are betting on a big upset, go Akron, or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, if you have not got onto FanDuel yet, perfect time during the NCAA tournament. $200, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So before you even get to the tournament, bet on something else. Go do some NBA bets. Do some spring training. I can't say do spring training bets. That's bad advice coming from a guy who lost their bet on the MAC tournament over the weekend. But take an easier bet. Put $5 down for your new customer. Cash in on that bet, and you get $200 from FanDuel to use during the tournament. So you can use it on point spreads, money lines. You can pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I should never. I'm very lucky Akron even won. I shouldn't even made that bet because it just did not. I knew it was done.
Not my cup of tea. I'm never good at them. Occasionally, so when I come out and say like this is like a sure thing, that shows
it's not a sure thing.
Yeah, well, no, I'm actually I'm like 4 for 4, I think, or 3 for 4. The over under on wins is the one I blew. But that it's like my lack of knowledge means that when something stands out as being a like really badly imbalanced, that must be really badly imbalanced because I don't have enough overall knowledge of that, but enough of things I don't know about. Let's talk about the baseball season and why we shouldn't just be giving up on everything and life is terrible.
It's not all bad. Yeah, it's not all bad. So we talked about how Gavin Williams isn't starting the season now. Sam Hentges, his start to the season is kind of up in the air, and we know James Karinchak's not starting the year as well, and definitely not great, especially for pitchers, but it is a marathon, not a sprint. You need your best 26. This is why it takes more than 26 guys to win anything. And in this division, I don't think, again, we talked about this last week and everyone has said this for years over. You can't win a division in April. You can certainly lose it. And I think Cleveland has enough to survive April until they figure this out with the pitchers, with Williams, with the Hentges. I think they have enough to figure it out in April and not lose the division. And we know the winning for the bar to win this division this year is not high. I don't think
lower than last year. That's for sure.
I think 86 wins could honestly win this division. I'm not saying
82 might. 82's got a chance.
But yeah,
I mean the Twins pitching staff is significantly worse than a year ago. And if we think back, their pitching staff is. It's in the same state it was 2 years ago when the Guardians won this division. Like it is back to that level where instead of Sonny Gray being the one guy, it's Pablo Lopez. Like it's the same state. Yeah. Like these are not good teams.
Yeah. So let's remember opening day is fun for the fanfare and the pageantry and all that fun stuff.
And for the sun disappearing and showing us what a world of cold darkness can be. Oh, I'm sorry.
Or when fans don't show up in Oakland for opening day because they shouldn't. Because I don't blame anybody who does go, but. I would probably be one of the fans that would go, but
I would not. I would be so PO'd. I would not.
Yeah, that's a debate for another day, honestly. But you want to have your best guys all season long, so making sure Williams comes back from this elbow discomfort, making sure that Hentges' finger gets right, things like that. Like, yes, opening day is fun, it's great, But as we all know over the years, that the 26 guys that are playing for you in April or March 28th even are not the guys who are playing for you on September 1st. So you hope to have your best roster down the stretch. We'll see if the Guardians do, but no reason to throw things up into disarray right now. So right now, I think the bullpen looks like this. If Hentges doesn't start the season on the roster because he hasn't built up enough, I'm thinking you have Clase, you have Barlow, you have Sandlin, you have Morgan, you have Heron. That's your 5 right there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Cade Smith, Lively for sure.
Yeah. I think Hunter Gaddis is going to earn one of those roles.
And there's the 3 spots. Lively.
I don't know if Lively or if Lively is going to be a starter or reliever, though. That's the thing. They have to figure that out. I think for sure, I think he's better off as a reliever as well. And they're figuring out to do Tyler Beatty, but
who didn't pitch badly last time out, in fairness.
Yeah, they had some things to say about him, that his stuff is so good that he needs to just go out and attack hitters. And he attacks hitters early on, and then he tries to put them away, and he takes, I don't want to say fools around, but he just needs to be more aggressive and do that. So I think Beatty is still an option as well, especially with all this going on. And we have Gaddis, you have Smith. I think Lively plays a role. So you've got guys to fill. We know Morgan is usually good in the first half and falls apart in the second. So if you have him, if you have usual good Morgan in the second half, in the first half, that's good. Sandlin, I never know. I think Heron's going to have a big year. I think Tim Heron's in line for a big year. I think last year was a good year for him to get his feet under him. I think he's ready to go this year. And, there's some other relievers emerging too. We're going to get to too. And there's some guys we shouldn't forget about either that I think we should bring up later in the show too. One thing I want to get to real quick though, before we get into all that, is Shane Bieber on Sunday did pitch 5 2/3 innings. Am I right on that? 5 2/3? 5 2/3. Results are results, whatever. 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, a run, 2 hits. Friend of the show, Travis Sawchek was in Arizona and saw Bieber pitching. He was up to 94 like he has been most of the spring. So the velocity has sustained for him. Just looking at the calendar right now and the fact that he is the first pitcher to go this long in a game, if he is lined up for opening day, his next outing would be on Friday of this week, which would put him on 6 days for the 28th, which I think makes sense because Bivey goes on Monday. So in theory, Bivey would be ready to pitch on 5 days rest on the 28th. But if you push everybody back a day to start the season, Bieber goes opening day. And I think that's kind of where things are at. I'm just noting it because he is the first pitcher who has been pushed that long in a major league outing for them.
Agreed. I think it's going to be him. Won't that set the record or something like that? Where you're like, oh, he'll never get a chance to set that record for opening days. Well, he is going to get a chance to do that. I believe he was tied for the most opening day starts. I think
Kluber?
Especially
or Stacey.
Wasn't it with like, it might have been with someone
Maggie?
like older, like someone like Mel Harder or like sudden Sam McDowell. I feel like
wow.
I'll have to go pull it up, but I think especially when you have a chance at history occurring, I think it is going to be him. And I am pretty sure. I'm sure if I have this wrong, someone will put it in the comments. It's
always good to learn people who might know more. It's fair.
But we know at the same time not to do a history-based episode because none of you will show up. Apparently. Like that is not
a fan.
For whatever reason, people. So there are those of you who are like, "Hey, I want more history." It's like, well, try to get other people to watch, as those
you're like 20% of the audience in that case. Yeah.
It's
not that you don't matter, but the majority of our audience doesn't care for the history debate. And then that lines up Tanner Bivey to go behind Bieber number 2, which is something we've kind of heard just based on the schedule of starters so far. And then next year when Bieber's pitching somewhere else, Tanner Bivey starts on opening day, and then he sets the record after he signs his extension. Right? That's how it's going to go.
I like your positive thinking. So 7 is the most with Feller from what I can see, but his 5 would tie him with Kluber and CC for second. So that's what happens. If my quick look is correct,
Bivey will break his in a couple years, in 6 years, starting in 2025.
I'm going to believe an extension happens with anyone at this point when they happen. I don't know. I like Tanner Bivey so much. I kind of don't want him to sign an extension since it's been more or less a death wish for pitchers. And just players of late. I mean, yeah, Kluber and Krasko worked out for, but since those two, and I'm going to believe in Jose Ramirez, but outside of that, it has not had the best record of late.
It has not. All right. Well, we got to talk about one reliever that's making some waves that Jeff and I both think is going to be up in 2024 that might make this whole bullpen injury thing a little easier to stomach. We'll talk a little about the spring.
It's got to be the star of the breakout game, right? That's the player we have to talk about. Is
what breakout game? What are you talking about, Jeff? Was there a game this weekend that involved prospects? I'm not really sure we heard about it at all, honestly, because why would you want to get excited about that? We'll talk about that and then some college baseball that was a little more accessible over the weekend that we'll wrap up as well.
Yeah, it was accessible as long as you weren't trying to flow your way to finding it. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up for peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, or all of them, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Yeah, flow right on to this second segment. That one sent me a little bit there.
I got a good giggle out of you in the ad for that one.
Sure did. All right. So the guy we were kind of teasing earlier in the episode is Andrew Walters, who, would have been great to watch him in the prospect game, which I'm going to spend a little time complaining about again, because that's what I do. And maybe people don't want to hear it. Maybe they do. We'll discuss it a little more. But Walters had a notable game. Struck out 3. He ended the game. He walked a batter, but it doesn't really matter the results of it, really. But the only real writing about it I could find was Mandy Bell from MLB.com, of course, was there. Had said that he was hitting 99, 100. 98, 100 was about his range during that inning. Struck out 3, and his slider was 89 to 90. And James Harris, who is the vice president, he's one of the assistant GMs now. He's up there. He still does a lot in player development. He was the director of player development before Rob Cerfolio took over. And they promoted Harris, so somebody else wouldn't hire him away, which hasn't happened yet. Shockingly, it probably will soon.
Yeah.
But Harris had an interesting comment on earlier in the week when they were talking about who was going to play in the spring breakout game, and they just talked about how advanced he was and where he played last year. And they said, we don't really push pitchers all that fast, but we're going to challenge him a little bit above where we normally do and see kind of what we have in him. I think that there's a very good chance that means that Andrew Walters starts the year in Akron. Normally, I would say everybody starts in high A, and relievers that have moved quickly, which I know Jeff wants to mention as examples real quickly. Normally, everybody starts in high A, and if they're good, they move quickly out of high A. But almost everybody starts there. I think Walters starts in Akron, and I think. Let's knock on wood for health. Let's find whoever has the voodoo doll of all these Guardians pitchers and take them out. And it does matter whether or not Cleveland's in the race, because I think that's good. If Cleveland is out of it, there's no reason to bring Walters up. But I think he'll be ready for the major sometime this summer. I really do.
I wrote his prospect live report up. I said he'd be the first player to the majors. I got that wrong. Nolan Chanel was the first player from the draft class to the majors.
Right. The Angels are in their own category. Take them out of it because they don't.
I got it wrong. Listen, I got it wrong. Got to move on. I'm accepting that I failed. Accepting my failure. It's something I can do. But having said that, his fastball was one of the best pitches. Was probably the best current pitch in that last draft class. It's his or Skeen's. Like you can debate which fastball is better. I thought he'd move super quick. There was Crockpot, the fetus, whatever nickname you want to give to Kyle Crockett when he came up. He was drafted in the 4th round, I want to say. Yeah, 4th round of the 2013 draft, back when this team would draft a guy from Virginia every year before they looked at the data and realized players from Virginia bomb. It is bad. I think Mark Reynolds is still the 3rd or worst case 4th most productive Virginia player ever. They don't have any starting pitcher yet in the history of their program in the big leagues to have, I think, more than 3 seasons of 20 starts. It's bad. But Cleveland mined them for a time. Kyle Crockett was in the big leagues May 16th after he was drafted the year before. There's a world where they get Walters moving quickly, especially if you look at this team and you look at the back end and you're like, well, I think there's still a chance, even if they're terrible this year, Walters debuts. And the reason for that is he might be their 8th inning guy of the future. He might even be the closer of the future if they decide that they can flip Class A for a ton of assets. They might want to just go ahead and start getting him and see how he responds in those roles and get him going. So I think there's a world where he debuts quickly. They've got this history of taking guys in the 2nd round who are relievers. Sandlin and Casey, recent guys who look like relievers who they took there. We'll have to, and I'll also say, if Nick Sandlin doesn't get hurt in 2019, he might have gotten to the big leagues the year after he was drafted. Both he and 99 were both pitching incredibly well that year, and both had a lot of injury issues that year where they got shut down for months and months, where you might have seen them both in 2019 in the big leagues.
Don't forget Cody Allen. Cody Allen moved up very quickly as well when
he did. He went from high A to triple A in a year.
He was in Lake County like barely long enough to take a shower. I remember he was in Lake County, and then it was like
a week later he
was gone.
He had like 2 years in the minors. Now he was an interesting guy because he was a day 3 senior sign, so he was already kind of a little bit older when they got him.
Yeah, I remember drafted him the year before.
Yeah. So no, he was 2011 and 2012, and I think he was drafted 2011, right? Is that? I think so. Yeah, he debuted and he debuted.
12.
Yeah, he debuted in 12. So he was another guy who the year after he was drafted, he debuted in the big leagues. So
yeah,
that is something they'll move quickly.
Yeah, I think Walters starts in Double-A and he will be up sometime this summer. I think you're right. There is a chance that he's up, whether or not the team's contending or not, just to get him in that role. Because if you think about it, if they're not contending, if Scott Barlow's pitching well, they're going to trade him. That leaves another hole. You don't have Stephen. Who knows if they're out of the race, if teams are calling about Class A and you get an offer you can't refuse. You get second half Morgan being second half Morgan, and then Walters is right there. So, yeah, there's a very good chance he's there. Alamon as well. I also wouldn't throw out the idea. I know they got to create 40-man spots if they do this, but, Nick Mikolajczyk was the guy we thought would be in the majors by now, and he's come back from injury. If he comes back and looks good, they'll still look at him at some point too, because I think he becomes a minor league free agent relatively soon. So it wouldn't shock me if they want to get a look at him as well. So, there's guys to keep an eye on. I'm not saying you want to fill your bullpen with a bunch of 25-year-old relievers, but
if you're a bad team, you do. We just want to see who's good. I mean, for bad teams, that's super smart. Like we just saw, the White Sox flip Gregory Santos. We saw the Seattle do that with Justin Topa, kind of, even though Topa's even older. It's like finding those guys with little experience, then flipping them. It's a very smart strategy, but not for a team that I think they have contention aspirations.
Yeah. All right. So, Walters pitching the spring breakout game. Just there was no fanfare about this. Like there was no social promotion on the Guardians front because it wasn't on TV or MLB TV even. I mean, there were some teams that even just had a webcam. I just was very confused about the approach of this game overall. They treated it like a regular game. They weren't working hard to get guys into it. I don't understand. Like everybody handles it differently. They said they weren't going to treat it like a futures game.
They acted like it was such an inconvenience.
Yes.
It was just inconvenience. Exactly what I was going with. Yeah.
The Tigers and the Phillies,
we have to do this. Come on. Yeah. Like it felt like, my 6-year-old, come on, and then just drag it.
And I know social media is always not a great, a way to judge real life sometimes, but there's a lot of people who we know that are fans, that are podcasters, that are writers, that were genuinely interested in this game. They are fans in the system of the team that wanted to see this game. Give people the product they want to see. And again, this was technically a Reds home game at Goodyear. And I don't want to sit here and say we know all the details of why it couldn't be on MLB TV. Maybe there was something preventing them from doing it. I don't know. We don't have all the details. I'll admit that. We don't have all the details. Maybe there was something that was preventing them from doing that. But there was just no fanfare, no promotion. It didn't seem like they really wanted to do. I mean, the Phillies, I watched the Phillies and Tigers one on Saturday. Great broadcast. They had like 8 different pitchers in. They got a bunch of guys in. It was super fun. It was super exciting. People were excited about that. I don't understand the aversion to getting people excited about the future of the team. I mean, I know prospects, maybe the Guardians think, you know what, prospects will always break your heart anyway because they're suspects. Maybe we just should make sure people don't care about them as much as possible. I just don't get it. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. I know we had some comments about why Ralphie Velasquez didn't play. I don't have any info on that, but my guess is a guy who was drafted last year just wasn't going to play. At least the high school guy, I should say.
Well, I mean, they put Clemmy on the roster.
Yeah, he was on the roster, but he didn't pitch because, heaven forbid any of those guys get any time on the field. There was Rafael Ramirez Jr. was on the roster, and he posted on Instagram a picture of him from MLB.com from their Instagram. It said, let the kids play. And I'm like, yeah, Rafael didn't play. So that's hilarious. We heard good reports on Jason Churio and his maturity and makeup. And he's trying to, he's learning English. He's competitive about learning English. Nikhazy was throwing 91, 94 was good. Webb was up to 94. I heard Enright was up to 95, which would be new to him. So good for him.
Always rooting for Nick. Anyone.
Yeah, we are rooting for Nick. Maybe Nick makes his way up this year with all these openings that are coming up in the bullpen. Maybe Nick Enright is up this year. All right, Jeff, do you have enough time? Do you have enough time to get to college baseball? Or do you want to do that tomorrow?
Why don't we let you do yours since I'll be doing a solo show tomorrow, and we'll save mine for my thoughts for tomorrow.
All right. Well, if you haven't heard, Nick Kurtz out for at least 2 months? Was it 2 months? 3 to 4 weeks?
I thought it was 3 to 4 weeks. So that'd be like 1 month.
Okay.
You scared me
3
for
to 4 weeks.
Though I will say, there's part of me it's like, hey, 2 months sounds great. Why don't we just shut it down for the year and see if Cleveland can just buy him to the comp pick? Yeah.
Why not? I think this injury probably, again, like you said off the air, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. So Kurtz could still work his way back up into the conversation, 100%. As could JJ Weatherhold. But this is not a good development for a guy who's been struggling this year to make an impact just because of a variety of reasons. Bazana had a good weekend, but he didn't really face great competition. Chase Burns crushed Virginia over the weekend as a pitcher, which, we talked about how Virginia is not a great program, great hitters, but they beat up on Josh Hartle Friday night. So
Salk is interesting. Farrell is interesting. Ethan, at least they have interesting guys. Ethan Anderson, they have interesting guys. And I'll be quiet again.
Yeah, and then Dylan Drayling had a great weekend. Had a home run on Friday against Ben Hess of Alabama, and he hit a couple lefties as well. Everyone was worried about him as a lefty. I think Dylan Drayling is pushing himself really up into the comp. Yeah, he might be a first-round pick, but I really like him a lot. All right, as Jeff said, I am out tomorrow. He's solo. Expect a lot of college baseball, I am sure. We have position previews to go. Obviously, we'll do relievers. Thursday, when Jeff's out, I'm going to do a roster projection mostly, and if you have any questions, we'll take some mailbag questions as well. We want to get to an expansion protection show. And at some point, I know Jeff wants to do a mock draft, so stay tuned for all that coming up.
Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I am solo.
Mock draft Tuesday.
Mock draft tomorrow, I guess. We'll do that. We'll have some fun with it. Thank you all for watching, joining. Remember to rate and review. That's really big. Comment, all that stuff.
We could use a review.
Yeah, all of our everydayers. We can always use all that support. Thank you for being you, and go Guardians, go.